It's great to be here. I have wanted to come and visit the Grey Area Foundation for quite some time. Myself and Barry have kind of missed each other a bunch of times over the last year. I think he's been avoiding me. Also, we just started our first ever artist in resident in the San Fran area just last week in partnership with Leonardo and the International Society for Art, Science and Technology. And our first artist is Jules, LC, as she likes to be known by, and we're very excited about that. And also, the topic I'm talking about around humanizing technology, I haven't had the opportunity to talk about this yet in this region, and I think it's very important. And I'm probably preaching to the choir, but what I'd like to do is give you the perspective from someone as an engineer who works in a tech company, to give you that alternate perspective and maybe share some of the ways that you might be able to open a fissure in the world of tech and insert yourselves to drive societal impact. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit. So in my role where we run the modern incarnation of experiments in art and technology, I'm responsible for how we bring together the scientific engineering technology community with the artistic community. And in that role, I get to think a lot about the intersection of humanity and technology. And I get to think a lot about the role that technology should, and I really stress should, play in bettering humanity. So what I hope to do in this talk is have you walk away with a perspective from an engineer or scientist who's working in a big tech company on the role that you can play as engineers, scientists, technologists to embrace this other way of thinking and this more human-centric approach to develop technology that betters humanity. I'd like to push us all to consider each of us as individuals and as consumers and how we just accept the crap that is put upon us technologically. And I'd like to really challenge each of you in this audience who are artists, creatives, that you shouldn't just wait here hoping that a tech company will reach out to you. I think you should actually insert yourselves, but you need to do it the correct way. And there's a bad way to do it, in which case you'll fail, and there's a better way to do it, in which case you can have massive impact. And maybe in the questions we can talk about that a little bit, because it's not necessarily part of my slides. So I'm going to talk about, I talk a lot about, for the last few years, innovation, what innovation is, what it is not, more importantly, creativity. And I've kind of come upon this recently, this kind of really solid wraparound concept of humanizing technology that I'm extremely passionate about. So let's just talk about innovation. If everything is innovative, then nothing is innovative. Okay? So just because you work on blockchain or AI or 3D printing or whatever, design thinking, that doesn't mean you're innovative. It already have an expression for that. You're working on these things. Just because you release the next variant of your product or whatever the next model is of an existing product, that's not innovation. That's just the next model release. Innovation surely has to be something different than what's already come before. It has to be something beyond the incremental. Otherwise, it's a completely pointless phrase, a completely pointless concept. And the reason I get worked up about this is because if we dilute what innovation can be truly, in its true essence, that means we're diluting the ability for innovation and technology to better humanity, and that really upsets me. So let's look at the kind of innovation, right, with humongous big rabbit ear quotation marks. And let's think about humanizing technology. This is a Kickstarter proposal that's already got more than its required funding, where you put this contraption on your mouth so that you can speak aloud in an open office plan. Now, hands up, anyone think this is humanizing or dehumanizing? I don't see hands. Is that, hands up, humanizing? No, okay, well, great, so you all agree with me. It's just complete nonsense, right? But this is the tech world we live in, and this is really driven out of this region. Here's another one. On the face of it, this kind of doesn't seem so bad. This is an iPhone case which holds a fork and a spoon. Okay, so it's a bit funny, but you might think, well, there's some kind of utility to that. I can have my fork and my spoon. It's a bit of an eco-sustainability play. But let's just have a look at how they expect you to use this technology. Okay? So you have to consume your food while consuming your digital content. I mean, if this is not the greatest load of nonsense you've ever seen in your life, but there's so many more examples. I could go on. I could give a whole 2 days of a talk with stupid examples about engineers, scientists, and technologists developing complete and utter nonsense that really has no value in the world. And this upsets me because I'm a trained engineer, I work in the area of science, and I take the work that I do far more seriously than this, and I think we all should. Okay, so then what is innovation? So I think a very good definition of innovation is that it has to be something that's inventive and, not or, and it must be impactful. So inventive means it's something new, something unique, something differentiated. This can come from research. You can have new things in research that might never have impact. And there can be lots of inventive things that can come in the art world. There can be inventive things in the art world that might not have very much impact in broader society, but there's still immense value in that. On the impact side, you can also develop the next smartphone that will generate billions in revenue, which has its place in the world. And I think we all use smartphones, so we can't really argue with that too much. But maybe your impact should be changing the world for the better, societally. And there's nothing wrong with generating a lot of money and maybe changing the world for the positive, but that can be quite tricky. So just to remember, next time you call your own work innovative, and next time you hear someone describing their work as innovative, ask, does it actually match what is a proper definition of innovation? Something new and something that's impactful. And my preference for impactful is change the world positively. Okay, so what I'd like to do is just give you a sense of how technology is being developed today. And I'd like to give you a counter example in some of the work we're doing with the artistic community. And it's not to say that our approach is better, but I just want to give you a sense that there is a different way so that we don't have to get locked into the current mode of developing technology and throwing this junk technology out at the world, and then us as consumers just accepting it. So let's look at some of the big tech macro themes of our time at the moment that is getting a lot of buzz, a lot of media attention, a lot of investment. So haptics. So haptics is the kind of simulation of touch in a virtual world, effectively. It's done through typically like your phone with vibrations and vibrational motors, but it can also be broadened to hot, cold, pressure, things like that. So this is the technology of today. Haptic gloves that you wear while you're in VR, and then they kind of simulate touch via these vibrations on your body. And I think this is kind of not humanizing or kind of inhumane in a way. And look at this example when you pair it with these big clunky VR goggles. You have basically what are like digital zombies in modern existence. It kind of reminds me of the show a little bit last night. But the thing is that this is what we're forced to use today in our existence and how we interface with technology. So this is the technological approach. With the artistic side, when we think about haptics, and when I think about a research roadmap or a product roadmap, if you want to use those terms, or a way that you can actually do something with respect to haptics in a more human way, a more human-centric way, we look to artists we work with who are musicians, composers, and we look to the haptic symbiosis between a musician, a subject matter expert, and their instrument, which has been a relationship that has existed for a very long time. And we try and learn about what makes us human and what's innate in the human condition around this importance around physical touch and using our hands to physically connect with other things. And we're learning a lot of the things we're doing through the artistic community, and one lens we learn through is through music and the relationship between a musician and an instrument. And I won't go into it for the sake of time, but you can check out a lot of this work online quite easily. I'll just play a short clip.
Roles. I come as a humanist who's deeply interested in the nature of communication. The second is as a technologist who's trying to think about how can I decrease the friction between a thing that allows someone to be expressive and the expressive intent on the other side.
So I won't go into that because it takes too long, but we've learned quite a lot about how we might develop haptic technology through the things we've learned by engaging the artistic community through this particular lens. Let's talk about robotics, another big buzzy term at the moment, and lots of people worry that robotics are going to kill humans or whatever. And this is the usual visuals you see, and then robotics gone bad. Of course, you kind of have a silly example. In our case, we work with an artist called Sue Gwen Chung, and she's been doing a lot of work in collaborations between human and machine, drawing collaborations in particular. And what we really like about this work is what we've learned around the benefits of taking the best of humanity and bringing that together with the best of technology. And in this particular case, Sue Gwen is live drawing with a swarm of robots, but what she worked on was some of our video analytics machine vision technology that we have that we use in smart cities. It looks at the complex patterns in a smart city like New York, or a complex city like New York. And then those algorithms extract some of the patterns, and those those algorithms or those data patterns were sent to the robotic swarm. They visualized the data in certain ways, and the Sue Gwen live drew with the robotic swarm and interpreted them in other unique ways. And we learned a lot about how we visualize our data, how we extract patterns and statistics from human flow, and we learned so much more just through this relationship with Sue Gwen that is changing our entire research direction around machine vision and data visualization, and actually our whole thinking around bringing the best of technology with the best of humanity. And the combination of both of those is so much more than either on their own. And it's not an either or, it's an and equation all the time.
That functions as a gesturally motion on the canvas.
When I first met Sue Gwen, I loved the line of her art. And ultimately, I don't think it's about the technology. I think that we, the technologist, facilitates the artist. And I'm learning something from them, and they're learning something from me.
What makes collaboration really interesting is that there's a lot of give and take and vulnerability that's required in it.
Okay, so the next big buzzy thing, VR, AR, virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, every other reality out there. A lot of buzz. This is what the world we live in today. This is the dystopian tech future that we might exist in. This is the typical approach that technologists, engineers are taking today. And VR largely hasn't particularly gone anywhere, a lot of investment in it. So the next wave of investment has been in AR, augmented reality, and of course there's a lot of marketing, a lot of drive around this. One of these pieces of work, that's not with an artist we've worked with, but I find this really interesting. It's called hyperreality, and this kind of sets a vision in the very near term of the future we might live in with AR.
Sto libre de mi ira. Sto libre de mi tristeza. Y el amor es mi
So you get the point. Honestly, I truly believe within the next 5 years, on the path we're currently on and how tech companies are pushing this crap upon us and how they're monetizing our existence, basically. Okay, they monetize our attention, but truly, they're monetizing our existence. This is absolutely highly probable to be our existence in the next 5 years. And I'd love to have a debate with anyone that would disagree with me. And this is really worrying to me because this is an exact linear extrapolation of the world we currently live in with social media and paid advertisements and monetization of our existence. In my mind, there's no way that we don't live in this existence in the next few years unless we do something drastic to change our entire approach. This is quite worrying to me, and I think this is a very interesting artistic provocation on the future of humanity and its intersection with technology and the market forces and the market we live in where everything has to be monetized. So we work with an artist called Lisa Park, and Lisa developed an exhibit or a piece called Blooming. And in this work, and typically in Lisa's work, she looks at kind of placing sensors and understanding how humans communicate in social environments, and she looks to make visible or make audible the interactions between people that we would normally be blind to. And the project with Lisa, we asked her to focus on the importance of touch in the human condition. So the fact that we've evolved for 300,000 years where the physical external manifestation of our inner thoughts either come from our voice or how we interact with the world through our hands, and the fact that we've largely lost that in our modern existence because everything is mediated through our thumbs via smartphone. We asked her to try and explore the fact and the importance that we've lost that part of what makes us human. So Lisa developed this work called Blooming. It's basically a 3D holographic cherry tree, real size approximately. When you enter the space, it's in its unblossomed state. But when two or more people physically touch, hold hands, touch shoulders, hug, kiss, whatever, the cherry blossom activates and grows based on the level of physical interaction they've had with them. And in this particular piece, we learned an awful lot about haptics, AR, VR, how you might, in a more human way or more human-centric way, connect people, both physically and digitally and visually. And we had a really interesting response where a lot of people that experienced this broke down, cried, got very emotional, families, even strangers, because in the feedback we got, it helped them realize that they'd lost this physical connection with their humanity and with other humans. And again, as an engineer, someone in the world of tech, this is exceptionally powerful to me and my colleagues to see that there's an alternate path. Maybe you don't have to go down the clunky haptic gloves, you don't have to go down the clunky VR goggles, you don't have to ruin our existence with all this digital noise. There's a way we can go back and reconnect with our humanity, still using technology in the right way, but that brings us back to our humanity and more deeply connects us. So what I'll do is I'll show a video. This is not of the final piece, this is in more of its prototype form, and you also get to see some of the back-end tech shown here, which you would never have seen if you had experienced this in person.
My name is Lisa Parr. I use biometric sensors like heart rate monitors and brainwave devices to create interactive installations and do performances. Blooming is an interactive installation based on the interactions between the audience members by measuring their conductivity, their gestures, and heartbeats. The tree starts to bloom, or it releases the petals to the ground.
So you get the point. You can check out a lot of this online. I don't want to go into too much detail. Okay, the next big buzz, AI, artificial intelligence. Oh, humanity, we're all doomed and gloomed if you read the press and the media. And by the way, most people that write about this honestly don't have a clue what they're talking about, so just take that with a massive pinch of salt. They just don't understand technology, and it's all headline grabbing kind of stuff. So I'd ask you to try and have your own thoughts about this and read more diversely than some of the big media outlets that talk about this stuff. So we've worked with a bunch of artists. In fact, we're doing a bunch of stuff today that we haven't gone public with yet. But then when people think about AI, this is the visual they have. It's from Terminator, obviously, and this is even quadruply bad. This is AI plus robotics, and of course we're doomed then. And there's a lot of stuff about how far should we augment ourselves. I don't think that's the right question. There's a lot of talk about bad AI comes from bad data. In fact, I don't think that's the right statement either. I think bad data and bad AI comes from bad scientists, engineers, and developers who throw this junk out to the world without really considering its downstream effects. And again, as someone that's trained in the field of STEM and engineering, and it really upsets me that these people are just throwing this junk out there and they just don't even think about what will happen downstream. It's not good practice. So I get very upset about that as well. I think it's a disservice to the STEM subjects. So we have a project with a beatboxer. That's one of these people that can make their voice sound like a computer, a machine. And with him, we developed this documentary series called We Speak Music. You can check it out online. It's a 6-part short documentary series, but the final 2 episodes focuses on the creative potential of AI. And in this work, Reeps, one is his name, Harry Yeff, he trained using machine learning algorithms. Machine learning is one of the kind of foundation technologies within AI. A digital twin of himself how to beatbox. And after a certain point of time, the digital twin, we call it second self, gets to a level of maturity that it gives him back sounds and techniques that he has never done in his life and absolutely never gave it in the training process. And in the process of this, the thing that he trained ends up giving him back stuff he's never done before, and that pushes his creativity into a whole new direction. And if you think about it, he's one of the most gifted vocal experimentalists in the world. He's a very creative guy. If AI can help him be more creative, what might it do for the rest of us if it's designed the right way, if it's designed for the betterment of humanity? And that's the big if, right? So the question is, how are you going to insert yourself into the tech community so that the nonsense that goes on in the world today doesn't keep on happening? And I wouldn't just sit there and hope that it happens, you get a commission or you get a residency. I think we have to figure a way to actually force your human-centric perspective into the kind of stuff that's developed around the world, but obviously in this region as well. So I'm going to show you a video. This is a short clip of the final episode of the documentary series, which happens to be a musical performance piece where you can see that he starts training his AI digital twin, his second self. It's visually represented, and then you can hear what it gives back in the training process, and eventually it gets to a level of maturity that he can actually collaborate with it in a really meaningful way.
One, two, three, four, five. I mean, the why it is for them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Another piece of rosum. Let's listen. And for with VDM, and this expression just.
Okay, for the sake of time, you get the point, or you can check it out online. I think it's really thought-provoking kind of subject matter. So I'm not going to talk about this. You can check out our work. We work with a bunch of artists, and in fact, this is only scratching the surface of the artists we work with. And we need to update what we have online as well, because we have a bunch of really interesting artists that we're working with currently. And you can just do Bell Labs search E.A.T, Experiments in Art and Technology. But I will point out one piece, which is the robotic arm there on near the bottom right as you're looking at it. This was by an artist called Jeff Thompson, who pointed out to me that we spend an order of magnitude more of our time interfacing with this thing than with anyone else in our life. Not anything else, anyone else. That's kind of creepy, right? If you think about it, it's not right. So what he did is, again, using machine learning algorithms, he trained the algorithms on how he interfaced with his own phone. He implemented those motions on the robotic arm, and you as an audience come in, place your hand under the robotic arm, it then touches you and strokes you just like you touch your phone, right? And it's super creepy. Purposefully super creepy, because it's meant to provoke you to think about, what the hell am I doing spending that much time per day touching this creepy device? Okay, so just very quickly, I know I've gone a couple of minutes over, but I'll just try and wrap this up in conclusion. So I think it's critically important that we bring, in a meaningful, proper, purposeful, long-term, collaborative way together the engineering scientific community and the artistic community, because they actually operate in two completely different modes. And there's massive tension that arises in the difference in those two modes, but if you can bridge that gap, I believe that at the interface of these two different disciplines and the approaches we have, that's where what I would call true innovation can actually emerge, true impact, true new things that have real societal benefit. And I think when I think about the future, the world we need to live in, what we need to design for, I think we need to design for magic, awe, illogic, inspiration, those kind of things, right? Bring us back to our humanity. And I honestly, truly believe, and I have a billion examples of this, I'm only mildly exaggerating, on the benefits of bringing together art and technology. I could talk about this forever with every artist we've ever worked with. We've had massive education and learnings in our company bringing that perspective in. Okay, so just to wrap, I think that technology has the potential to lift humanity and positively impact us all, but I think it's been massively under-leveraged, underutilized, and people don't develop technology properly with our humanity in mind, which is very disappointing. I think there's a number of reasons for this that are well known, but I'll just amplify some of them. I think there's a complete lack of understanding of what innovation and creativity actually are. They're completely overused buzzwords. There's a complete lack of diverse perspectives in STEM. At the very minimum, it's just boring. In the worst case, it's actually obscene and disgusting. And I think we need to fix this rapidly. And honestly, there's a pandemic of male, pale, and stale, and I'm obviously part of that, but we need to somehow figure out a way to alter this. And we have a complete lack of human-centric thinking or humanizing approaches in how technology has been developed, and I mean across the world, although this particular region happens to be particularly bad for it at the moment, but this is a problem, this is a systemic problem across all of the planet. So what I'd just like to finish with is to say, well, it's great to be here. I just ask that you think about some of these things, your role as an artist, as a creative, and how you might impact the world positively by forcing yourself into this other tech world. I'd ask us all as consumers to think about how we use and just accept the technology that's put upon us, and basically conclude with that. Thank you.